Hello, Funke Oyende here. Today we are making a tab top curtain. So I'm going to be using my African print fabric, popularly known as Ankara. So I'm using 2 yards of fabric for the tab top curtain. I'll explain what a tab top curtain means to you. And at the same time, I will be lining the curtain so you know how to make lined curtains. Okay, so this is the fabric for the curtain. It's two yards, and I'll be using this lightweight fabric called voile plain voile fabric for the lining. It's also the same width, also 2 yards, the same width as the face fabric. And I will be making tabs for, tabs are like short loops that I'm going to arrange on top of the curtain to hold. So we're going to thread the rod through those loops to be able to hang the curtain at the end. So I need to cut fabric to make the tabs. So I have this fabric cut here. These are my tabs. So I just picked one of the matching colors, one of the colors on my fabric for the tabs. So my tabs, I'm using a measurement of 6 inches wide by 10 inches long. So I have 6 inches by 10 inches for the tabs. So in essence, I will be sewing the tabs first, and then I'll be sewing it to the top of the curtain first. Okay, so let's get started. So let me keep the face fabric and the lining fabric aside, and let's work on the tabs. So the number of tabs you will be using depends on how you space. It depends on how you space your tab on top of your curtain. So the wider the spacing in between the tabs, the fewer tabs you will need. But if your tabs are closer, if your space is short and then your tabs are closer, you will need more tabs. So we will get to that when we begin. So I'm going to fold the tab in two, and then I'll sew it on my machine. So after sewing it, I will have to turn it right side out. So I have to turn it right side out. So after turning it, I'm going to go ahead and sew all the tabs. I actually cut 8 tabs. So this is one. I'll put this aside and make the remaining. So I have all my 8 tabs sewn now. So the next thing, I will be ironing my tabs so that they look flat and well laid, and I'll ensure that the seam, the joint side, the seam is in the middle. So I will be doing that now. Alright, so all my tabs are ironed out now, so I'm going to keep them aside and I'm going to work on the curtain. Now, my curtain, I want to frill the end. Actually, my fabric is just 45 inches in length. The fabric I'm using is 45 inches in length. So it's not a regular curtain fabric. This is African print fabric, so it's just 45 inches in length. So it's short. So that means that my curtain is not the full length type. It's going to be a short curtain. So now you can see the length. This is it. Just from here to here, just about 45 inches. Okay, so now what I want to do is the down part, the bottom part of my curtain, I want to frill it. So that same material, that's the fabric I used for lining my, that I'm using for the lining of my curtain. I'm going to use part of it to frill the bottom edge of my curtain. So I have 8 inches, so I just cut very long 8 inches strip from the fabric, so it is just 8 inches. So I will fold it in two this way, so it becomes 4 inches. So then I will use it, I will use it to make frills and join it to the bottom edge of my curtain. So I just want to frill it. So number one, it's going to make it to look more beautiful. It's going to add to the beauty of the curtain. And number two, it's going to increase the length of my curtain. So the frilling is very simple. I just turn in a little bit, about 2 inches of one of the ends, so as to hide the rough edges inside. Then I will place it on top, then I will frill. So that means I will be pleating and sewing it to the fabric. I will be pleating and sewing. That's what it means to frill. So you can pleat it or you gather it, whichever one you like. So I will just see how I am pleating. So that's what I'm going to do to the entire bottom edge of the curtain fabric. So I'll just keep pleating and sewing it down. So as I complete the frilling of that lower edge, so the next thing will be to knitting this place. You can use your zigzag machine to overlock and make this place neat, and then you can then turn this and iron it, so that you turn the frill down and iron it so it looks straight and smooth. So then the next stage is to proceed. So I'll be adding the lining to it. I'll be adding the lining to the inside part. So here's my lining fabric. It's the same size as the face fabric. So I'm just going to align it to my curtain. It's the same size, but now that the face fabric has frill at the lower edge, the frilling has increased the length of the face fabric, and that's what we want. We want the curtain, the face fabric, to be a bit longer than the lining, so that the lining does not show at the bottom edge. It doesn't show. If they are the same size, the tendency is for the lining to be showing underneath. So now that the face fabric is longer because of the frill, it's better. If I did not add frill, that means my lining will be a bit shorter than the face fabric by about 5 inches. So I will now, they are now together, so I will turn in about 1 inch the first time and the second time, and I will sew it down on this side and on the other side. So after joining the lining to the back side, so it's time to complete the heading of the curtain, the top of the curtain. So what we are going to do is I will fold in about 1 inch in. I'll fold it 1 inch in the first time, and then I will now put in my tab. I will slot in my tab that way. So as I fold it in the first time, I'll be doing a double hemming or at the top also. So I fold it the first time, then fold it the second time before placing my tab underneath the second time. So it will be like this. So I will now sew it down. So after I've sewn it down, I will later turn my tab up, only my tab, and sew it up so that my tab will be facing up. Okay, so let's get that done now. So I will just so this is already double. It's already double. The hemming is already double. So as I'm hemming and sewing my tab underneath, I will maintain a 6 inches distance between each of the tabs. So I'll be arranging my tabs in 6 inches apart. Okay, so next, after I've done that, so I will now turn all the tabs up and sew it one more time so that all the tabs will be facing up. And we are done. So all the tabs have been sewn in, so we just have to hang our curtain. And so this kind of curtain does not need heading tape, so you will just threading your rod into the tabs and then you hang. So that's what we're going to do next. We're just threading our rod and then you arrange well. Arrange your cutting well and you space the tabs well and then you hang. So you just paste them very well and then you hang your new tab top cutting. So before I finish this training, you see these tabs, you can also iron your buckram to it so that to make it stiff, and you can further go on to design your tabs. So what I mean by that is, like, you can just get a pattern like this. You have a rectangle. This is our 10 inches long tab. So but instead of the 6 inches we used, you will need just about 4 inches, and then you can make the edge, one of the ends to be pointed like this. So you now cut two of this. You cut two of this and sew them together. You sew it together and then turn right side out. So after you've turned it and sewn, right, so you have a finished tab like this. So you can then just attach this tab with your pointed edge and allow the pointed one to, you sew it on top like this. So it will look more decorative, and then you can even go ahead and add any decorative trim like buttons to, your pointed tab like that. So that means it's only this end that will be, sewn inside, but this other one, you allow it to, go over your cutting like this, and then you can, use your pin or whatever your buttons to tack it down. So you only sew one end to it, you leave the other end, and then you tack this with buttons or any other, or flowers, you know, to make it more beautiful. So now that is tab top cutting for you. I hope you have enjoyed the class. I look forward to seeing your own tab top cuttings. Thank you and bye for now.